Welcome back to World Talks here on TVP World. Now, Ukraine's parliament has amended the 2024 budget on Wednesday, raising its defense spending by an additional 10.8 billion euros. Now, this as the war with Russia continues. Meanwhile, the IMF's recent decision to cancel a planned trip to Russia has also stirred considerable reaction from European capitals, potentially affecting its relationship with Russia and its role in global economic governance. Now, to help us navigate these complex issues shaping the region, I'm joined today by Stefan Korshak, Senior Defense Correspondent from the Kyiv Post. Thank you so much for being with us here this morning on TVP World.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, Stefan, I want to first talk to you about, ask you specifically about these latest drone strikes. And what are these broader implications of these drone strikes, particularly regarding the use of drone warfare, the fact that Ukraine now is shooting these drones into Russian territory, specifically the region of Belgorod?
We are in a new world. We are in a type of war that the world has never seen before, and everybody is scrambling to try and figure out what the implications are. The Ukrainians are saying that this is not by any means an apex. They are going to hit harder, they're going to hit more often, and they're going to hit more effectively. The weapon that they used apparently was their first jet-propelled drone, and they say that they have them rolling off the production line and that they are going to make strikes like this more and more often. The Russian defense system is, as we can see, scrambling to try and deal with that, and not just, because this is a scale of attack on Russia that hasn't been seen probably since the Second World War.
Right, and so now let's talk about the Russian citizens and the residents that were evacuated. Now, in response to those Ukrainian strikes, how do you think it's going to actually impact Russia's overall security posture?
That's an excellent question, because the answer depends on what the Russians are telling their own public and then what their decision makers are saying internally. They have a problem from a practical point of view in that Russia is it's a huge territory, and simply isolating it from air attacks is extremely difficult. They probably don't have the resources to do that. So their challenge is to try and deal with the probable increasing scale of the Russian strikes, with limited resources to do it, and at the same time to maintain the message to the public that they have the situation under control. By some measures, they're losing control of the situation. Whether or not they are talking amongst themselves internally, honestly, about what the implications are is an excellent question. So the Russian blogosphere generally seems to agree that what's going to happen next is that the Russian leadership is going to react rather than develop a plan, because it's difficult to really develop a strong plan to defend themselves against what's coming next.
So you just mentioned, about what Russia is going to have to tell its public now with everything that's been going on, particularly since last month with Ukraine's surprise attack in Kursk. And now this, would you say that Russians' faith in their government is actually now broken, now that they're witnessing actual Ukrainian counterattacks?
I certainly wouldn't call it broken. I would be quick to add that I report out of Ukraine, and I certainly read the Russian media closely. I'm not there. But it's very clear from what people like me can see that where there is open discussion, there are questions being raised. However, about the capacity of the Russian government to secure the population. That being said, it seems like Russian patriotism overall is strong, that their belief that their government is protecting them is, if not unshaken, they don't really see an alternative. So broken is not a word that I would pick, certainly.
Yet it's still their Russian narrative. Stefan, let me ask you now. Well, let's talk a little bit about now defense, right? And the most recent news. So, with Ukraine now said that it's going to increase its defense spending after amending the 2024 budget. Now, how do you see this actually impacting Ukraine's long-term military strategy and its ability to actually maintain this ongoing conflict with Russia?
It will certainly increase Ukrainians' capacity to fight the war, but it's an incremental increase. So what we're talking about, for instance, is an incremental increase in the kind of strikes that we've just seen, an incremental increase in the amount of drones that the Russian ground forces have available, or the sea forces for that matter. It's not going to be a sea change, because the sea change is well beyond, in terms of military material, is well beyond the Ukrainian population, the Ukrainian economy's ability to support. That requires foreign assistance. That's major missile systems, that's fighter jets, that's massive intelligence, and the Ukrainian society is just incapable of providing. So without the foreign assistance, you're not going to see a dramatic change. What you're going to see is an increased Ukrainian level of resistance, but they'll be outgunned, and the Russians will still be more powerful.
Right. So you just mentioned foreign assistance, and just on that, do you think that the fact that Ukraine now increased its defense budget, that it's going to affect its relationship with Western allies? And also this news, is coming right before Zelensky's trip to the United States as well, right? So,
yeah, there's feeling in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine amongst its allies that Ukraine needs to take more responsibility for its own defense in terms of material. And this is part of a process that's been going on for some time. So the additional funding to the Ukrainian defense infrastructure is a step in that direction. The Ukrainian hope, without question, is that if that their demonstration of ability and willingness to commit more resources to their own defenses will not produce less support from their allies, but more, and a general view that a greater, more massive collective effort is needed to defend the country. I'm sure that that's what the Ukrainian hope is. What the Ukraine's allies, how they feel about it is, that's up to them. There'll be some that'll just say that, okay, now we can reduce our support, and there'll be others, perhaps the Poles, but certainly the Scandinavians and the British, I would say, that would say that this is a good grounds to increase our support to Ukraine. So it would depend on the ally, I would say.
And now with this defense question, my last question regarding this defense, now, do you think that it's going to pose domestic issues, economically, social stability, or like you said, you don't see it as such a big issue?
No, it's a big issue, because the Ukrainians, they're not just fighting a war, they're living day to day. So there are people who have businesses that are going to have trouble, because if they're in the retail side, there's going to be a public with less money to spend. If they're in the production side and not producing for the military, then they are going to have a smaller economy to produce for. And since economic growth is something that everybody wants, it's clear that this is going to slow it down, if not stop it completely. That being said, it's a war. And when there are missiles exploding and people dying, people, I think, generally understand that the economic situation has to take a second place.
Tell me, Stefan, now also yesterday, President Zelenskyy said that his victory plan is ready to be presented, right, to end the war, and that now the most important thing left to do is to actually implement it. Now, we know, from what we hear, that he's going to present this, right, during his trip to the United States. But now, what can you tell us about this? Do we have more details about this victory plan?
There's very little, and there's not even much speculation within the Ukrainian media. We know what Zelensky's position is, or excuse me, what the Ukrainian government position is on what victory would look like, and it's effectively almost a capitulation by Russia. And the question is, okay, where is Ukraine going to be willing to negotiate? There is some talk that maybe, I believe the Polish foreign minister mentioned that, in his view, a good idea or a possible idea for Crimea would be to have UN run elections, honest elections, to determine the population's loyalty. That would be maybe not a non-starter as he described it to the Ukrainians, but perhaps negotiations could lead to longer-term elections after a certain period of time. And that might be a direction that the victory plan would go in that, but I'm speculating, but it could be that his plan is going to be, we have a goal for ultimate victory, but in the process of getting towards these agenda that we have, we're willing to discuss temporary measures with temporary in quotation marks. So not join NATO, but be allies with individual European nations on a security relationship, and NATO is sometime in the future. So a final end to the war might be pushed back, but honestly, anybody outside of Zelensky's circle, I don't think they know what this plan is yet.
Right, and I think it's also going to depend on, who becomes the next president of the United States as well, right? And what course of action that might take. Stefan, tell me now. So the International Monetary Fund also recently just canceled its trip to Russia, right, following warnings and outrage from European capitals. Now, how is this decision going to affect the IMF's relationship with Russia and its broader influence in global economic governance? What can you tell me about this?
The IMF has several different priorities, and like any major international institution, it is not in the interest of the IMF to simply cut all ties with Russia forever. Not from a preservation of the institution point of view, the bureaucratic point of view, if you will, and not from the financial, monetary point of view. Russia is a major economy. Cutting all ties with that economy over the long term is not good for global economic health. So from the IMF point of view, a relationship with Russia, even with the leadership that it has and the action that it's taking on the international arena, needs to be maintained. The problem is that the IMF, by and large, is an institution that's supported by the major economies of the world, most of them, and those are Western democratic states who have a stake in the conflict with the war with Ukraine, and they have taken the position that Russia is an aggressor, which is probably a fair statement. So the IMF has to walk a careful path. They, on the one hand, have the goal to maintain links with all major economies, of which Russia is one, but on the other hand, the people that are providing them most of their money are states with a strong position, and that position is against Russia. So long term, it'll be difficult for them, but they probably, I think, will find a way to maintain some kind of relationship with Russia. That would be my guess.
Thank you so much, Stefan Korshak, Senior Defense Correspondent for the Kyiv Post, for all your input on all this news that is shaking up Ukraine. Thank you so much for being with us here on World Talks.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Have a great day.
And that's all for this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Up next, more news here on TVP World. Stay with us.